Hey, what's going on, guys? Back with another video. It's something slightly different. Just a little story I wanted to tell you guys. I thought you'd get a kick out of this. I don't know. Earlier in the day, I was on Facebook and I saw a photo that a friend of mine posted of it was a store. There was like a chain of them called Woolworths, and those stores have all closed up. That chain doesn't exist anymore, as far as I know. That maybe some in other parts of the country. I don't know, but as far as I know, that chain has been shut down. But anyway. So when I was younger, now the town over from where I live, there's sort of like a main street that has a bunch of up and down. There's a bunch of stores and clothing stores and different kinds of stores. And there's, if you go down a little further, a few feet away, but sorry, there's this movie theater that is still there that I've been going to since I was a kid. I would say probably 85-90% of all the movies I've ever seen have been at this theater. Uh, it's a great little theater, a lot of memories for me. Anyway, there were these two stores. There was Woolworths, and then there was this other store that was sort of a local. It was like a department store, but it was a local sort of run store. It was like, I guess you could call it like a mom and pop store. It was a store called County Discount, and so I was thinking about what Woolworths remind me of. There used to be a lot of these sort of chains of stores like the Woolworths, and there was a store chain called Gimbals, if I remember, and a bunch of other stores. There were these chains, and they were sort of all around the area, and they were like departments. They were similar to what now we have like Walmart and Target and Kmart still, but there were other sort of smaller chains, and they eventually got bought out by other companies and phased out or whatever. And I was thinking, there's a lot less options for retail buying, and it's getting less and less because so many people are just doing online purchasing. But these two stores in particular just remind me of my childhood. I was thinking about how there were a lot of action figures and other toys that I got as a kid at these two little stores. You know, yes, I my parents would take me to Toys R Us sometimes, and I would go to the mall. And in fact, the malls there's another chain. There was a chain of toy stores called KB Toys, which used to see them in every mall in the area. Everyone had at least one of these, and that whole chain is gone. So again, so that reminds me of my childhood as well. But these two little stores, they were sort of local stores, and as I got older, it was close enough that I could walk to them, and I used to walk to the movies a lot. And anyway, and I remember these two stores in particular, the Woolworths and County Discount. I bought a lot of figures there, and I remember if I had birthday money or Christmas money, or even if I just had money that I'd saved up from, people would give me for my piggy bank or whatever, or just whatever. And you know, figures back then were a lot cheaper. You guys, you young whippersnappers now, you youngins, hmm, with your $10 for each action figure and maybe 12 or $15. Oh my God, you don't know how good you have it. We had it better back in the day. And our friends, overseas, they have to spend $20 maybe or for one figure. We have it so you don't know. $10 a figure, outrageous. Ah. But anyway, that's my old man voice. I'm sounding like somebody's parent or uncle or something. Well, I'm an uncle. That was my attempt at an old man voice. I don't know. But anyway, back then when I was a kid, the figures were $2, $3, $4, maybe, a typical average figure, say a G.I. Joe or a Star Wars. And they weren't, it wasn't vintage Star Wars figures back then. They were just Star Wars figures. But anyway, but when I needed my parents to take me to a Toys R Us or a mall or something, but these two little stores were if I had a little bit of money, these were stores that were close enough I can sort of go myself. I was trusted to walk by myself. I forget how old, not 4 or 5, maybe 7, 8. I don't know, somewhere in there. I don't know. But anyway, I remember I used to go in, and the Woolworths was on the corner, and the County Discount was a few doors down. And sometimes I would have enough money for 2 or 3 figures, or maybe just 2 figures, depending on the price. I think Woolworths was $1 more than County Discount, or vice versa, maybe. So I would go in there, and I remember I would look to see how much the figures cost, and then I would look at what figures they had, and I would go back and forth and and try and decide. Okay, I can say if I had money for 2 figures at either store, I would look at, because one store would have this figure and one store would have a different figure, and I would compare okay, I can get this figure which I want more and this figure, or would I go to this store and get these figures, and maybe they would have 2 figures that I wanted, and this store had 1 figure and 1 figure that I sort of wanted, and 1 figure that I really wanted. I don't know. And I remember I used to do that all the time, and I would go back and forth, and so I would do that, and then also later on, sometimes I would make a day of it, I'd go to the movies, and then go in these stores and buy an action figure, and that was my little afternoon by myself. I don't know, it was weird. And that's another thing that was a lot cheaper. I remember paying $2.50 to go to a movie. Now it's at least $10. So anyway, $2. Can you imagine that? $2.50 to go see a movie. Sometimes I'd see 2 movies in a day. Anyway, but that was, back then, prices have changed. But it's just something I remember. Those 2 stores always would remind me of my childhood, and even as I got older, it would remind me of that. And eventually, those stores went away; they're not there anymore. And the County Discount was neat because it was a man and a woman that ran. It was kind of like an older couple, and I remember you came in and the newer stuff was right in front, and then the Star Wars figures were behind the counter, all on pegs. It's just they put stuff wherever they had the room. And then you went down and there was an aisle that had sort of the bigger items, the vehicles and play sets. But the action figures is what I went in there for the most, because that's what I usually had the money for. And I remember I would look through the pegs, and sometimes he would ask me if I was looking for something. I would show the back of one of the card backs. It's do you have this guy maybe? Because sometimes he'd have other figures in the back and just didn't have room for. And sometimes he'd go in the back and he'd have a couple of different figures for me to choose from, and it was just a fun experience for me. I always loved going in this little store. And like I said, and the Woolworths was the same thing. In fact, I remember the first time I ever bought a game system. This is years later when I had more money. The first time I ever bought a game system by myself, it was the Super Nintendo, and I got it at Woolworths. And in fact, I remember, I forget what the pricing was, but it was the Super Nintendo system with 2 controllers, and it came with the Super Mario World. Or they had the system with just the 1 controller, and I can get a game separately. And the price worked out to be the same. I usually didn't have anyone to play games with. When I was younger, it would be me and my brother, but he moved out at that point. So I opted for the game I wanted more, which was this wrestling game. Eventually I got the Mario game, but there was this wrestling game I wanted. So I got that with the system and the one controller. So so that was another little memory. So yeah, that's just something I thought about when I saw this. Like I said, I saw this picture on Facebook, and it just instantly made me think of these two stores. That was sort of many memories, one of various many memories from my childhood from these stores. And so, like I said, so it was lots of G.I. Joes, lots of Star Wars figures. And I even remember this one time, when my mom would come home from work, she would come back on the bus, and it would pass by these stores. And sometimes she would get off, get off early, where it was in front of these stores, and she would surprise me with like a new figure. Every once in a while, she would do that. And so that's just sort of like a little bit of memory for me that always that those two little stores remind me of. It was sort of the local store and the small chain that I was able to buy something on my own, and it was neat sort of picking it out. I don't know. So that's about it. It's just a little story that I thought maybe you guys would get a kick out of. Here, real quick, I'll show you. These are the two new figures that I got. Two more Cantina figures that I have. They're not great articulation, but they look cool. So, I showed you this little setup in one of my previous videos. So I just thought I'd show you that real quick. So yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little video, little story of mine, and that's about it for now. I got other reviews. I got some other stuff coming in the mail, and so some other items that can be reviewed. I have a couple other reviews that are sort of done and ready to go. So lots of stuff coming, and yeah, that's gonna be it for now. I'll let you guys go. As usual, comment, rate, subscribe. If you like this video, that'd be great. And until then, I'll sign off and say, may the force be with you. Bye.